So I chose this because I like to say that I started the IPA trend. Did you know that?
It's we're getting into the bold claims here already. Okay. Tell
Okay.
me more.
I don't have another Sunday New York Times story in me, so or like any,
Yeah.
major story. I mean, those things take a lot of work. So I'm happy to be able to talk about it. Um, it definitely, I know that people have said to me that the article changed their life, and the article
Mhm.
actually changed my life too. And so that's something that just recently I've been wrapping my head around on a daily basis. It's sometimes it's a little mind blowing. I have to, whenever someone says, "Oh, she started a movement," I'm like, "Did I?" Yes.
Yeah. The IPA thing is easier to own, but this is like, yeah,
Yeah. Well, you know what though? Probably in another 10 years, I will be like, "Yes, I did."
like I started Black LinkedIn.
Yeah, and it won't be prevarication. So
Exactly. On this episode of Brews and BizDev, my illustrious guest is Ashanti Martin, head writer at First Boulevard. As Ashanti and I enjoy a DogFish Head 60-minute IPA, we chat about a few things, like, of course, the article she wrote for the New York Times on Black LinkedIn and what some call a movement that was born from there. We talk about what we can do as people and as companies to overcome these old school notions of professionalism and how that keeps us as people and as companies restrained and bound and not really living to our potential. And Ashanti amazingly actually tries to take credit for the whole kind of craft beer IPA craze. So we get into a lot of different stuff. Thanks for watching. If you dig what you're seeing, please remember to subscribe and share and enjoy. Hey, Ashanti, how's it going? Thanks for being here.
hey, Paul, thanks for bringing me on. Happy to be here.
Yes, happy to have you. And before we get into the important stuff, which is the drinking of the beer in the afternoon, why don't you just take, kind of let the viewers and listeners know who you are, the elevator pitch version.
Okay, so my name is Ashanti Martin, and probably a lot of the people on here know me through LinkedIn. I am the anti-influencer. That's my first descriptor. So I just kind of use that to, um, that's my elevator pitch because I do a lot of things and I dabble in a lot of different things. But I am a writer. I've been a writer for my whole career. I started out as a newspaper reporter. Always wanted to be a journalist from my very early days as a child. One of the stories I always tell is that the first thing I ever wrote was a newsletter called the Warburton Times. I lived on Warburton Avenue in Yonkers, and I wrote it on a brother word processor that I believe we could print from. Like this is, yeah, I don't think most people probably even know what I'm talking about, but so I started a newsletter with my friends, and I just kind of took it from there. So and recently I wrote an article for the New York Times about Black LinkedIn, which is a movement that I am just still seeing going very strong, and it's really gratifying to have been able to make such a visible impact with words. So I have been a writer, but most of my career, in addition to being a newspaper reporter, I've worked in higher education for a very long time. And I recently left that industry due to the pandemic and ended up at a fintech startup called First Boulevard, where I'm a writer now. And I'm really excited to be there. Every day is so gratifying because we are working toward a larger goal of, empowering Black American communities specifically with financial literacy and tools to build wealth. Because I think there's been a lot of conversation over the last year that generational wealth is projected to actually, the gap is projected to grow over the next several years. So if there's not anyone doing something about it, then that's an issue. So our CEO, and our COO, our two co-founders, they were very motivated by the murder of George Floyd to do something to make a difference. So they came together and they put their, um, energy and talent and experience behind this. And I'm so fortunate to have ended up here, there at well, it's actually nowhere because we're all all over the
Nice.
country.
Excellent.
um, so yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. But at the end of the day, my elevator pitch is I'm a writer,
Nice. Excellent.
storyteller, as everyone is,
Yes, yes.
storyteller. I've been a storyteller for a very long time.
Yeah, the legit version, not the where every marketer in the world now is a storyteller of
Oh
some kind,
yeah,
which I can appreciate. That's my industry.
I can appreciate it too. But
Yeah,
as we know in marketing, sometimes we lean too heavily on specific words and they just start to lose their meaning. But I don't know. That's just my opinion.
yeah,
Also, I have children. You need to get out.
yeah.
Get out.
You do.
Yeah, you got to get out.
Co-stars, we call them.
All right. So,
Okay, so now the real critical part of this entire show here is tell us what beer you chose to feature on your episode. And I know it was a struggle coming up with which one do I pick. We went back and forth a little while ago. I narrowed it way down for you so you could pick one. So tell us what you came up with.
well, I chose DogFish Head, 60-minute IPA.
Mm-hmm.
One, I've chose this for many reasons. You're right; it was hard to narrow down, but among the reasons is that I knew it was something we could both enjoy together,
Mm-hmm.
because it was available. It would be available for you where you
Yeah.
are, and it's available here. So this is my choice. I just picked it up today from a bar near my house here in Philly.
Excellent. And you're in Philly, right?
I am,
Yeah.
yes.
Here I am in Buffalo. All right. Well, there we go.
All right,
Cheers.
cheers. Mm. Oh,
Mm.
that's so good. It's like summer in a bottle.
It is very good. Many comments to the office today, like, "Oh, okay, good one, yeah, excellent." As I come in with the six pack.
Yeah, I thought when I chose this, I was a little worried beforehand. I was like, is this basic? Like, is this too basic? Should I be
Hmm.
like more, esoteric in my
Yeah.
choice, like show off my beer snobbery? But I'm not really a beer snob. I mean, I love trying new beers.
Hmm.
No, I am a beer snob. I don't drink Coors. I don't drink Bud. The Miller High Life is like my kind of pedestrian
Okay.
every woman beer. But
Hmm.
so I chose this because I like to say that I started the IPA trend. Did you know
It's we're getting into the bold claims here already. Okay,
that?
tell
Okay.
me more.
All right, so maybe I didn't, but I haven't Googled it. So I'm sure somewhere there's a history of how IPAs became the trendy beer of the hipster set. But
Mhm.
so back in 2007, I wasn't really even a beer drinker. I grew up, and even in college, like I just kind of hated beer. I just thought it tasted bad. Um, so I was at a bar in New Brunswick. It's a brewery actually called Harvest Moon, and New Brunswick, New Jersey, which is where I went to school at Rutgers University. And we were ordering drinks. I was there on a date, and so with a bunch of other people.
Date went very well. I'm guessing from the look on your face when you said date.
Yeah, that's another episode. Um, but so I'm like, all right, I gotta order something to drink. I'm like, I'll get a beer. And so they had their list, and I just said, I was in my 20s, was kind of broke, definitely on a budget.
Yeah.
So I went down the list and I chose the one with the highest ABV, and I said, give me that one. And so literally that day, before then I was never a beer drinker, but then that night I became an ardent fan of IPAs, and this was in 2007. So I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I wasn't, so maybe I didn't start it, but I feel like I was in the early wave of
Yeah,
IPA.
you were in there. You were in there early for sure. You're in there. That's certainly earlier than I was paying any attention to any of the craft anything, let alone IPAs. And they've moved past hipster now. I mean, now it's just kind of like
Yes,
everyone, and so that real beer snobs talk shit about the IPAs,
I
right?
know. I
Yeah, you
know.
drink IPAs. That's like what's the common? That's like the pumpkin spice of beer flavors. It's like
Yes,
I don't care. I like it.
I like it. I like it. And so that was my fear. I was like, am I being too basic because of the that kind of judgment? But
Yeah.
I said, you know what? I'm going to go with my heart. So
Good. Good. I appreciate that. And yeah, I think also similarly, I don't consider myself much of a connoisseur, or I mean snob, because I can be arrogant and dickish about just about anything, right? I mean, it doesn't require knowledge. And I don't know a tremendous amount. I don't like a lot of sours. I don't, there's a lot of stuff I don't like that might be cooler or more obscure or whatever. I like what I like. And I also, yeah, I don't like Budweiser. It's easy for me not to drink that shit because it's like, your experience in college was correct. I mean, it didn't taste good. That wasn't the point. So I got through it, but I'm not going to now. If somebody comes on here, like I got something, what did I get the other day? I had on Brooklyn Nash from Sales Hacker, and he lives actually in Guatemala. And so he said he was going to pick the Guatemalan like national beer. Just like, so he's like, so just think crappy lager and then go get something like that. And I did. And then he came out with a better beer. He
yeah,
shows up with like a like an IPA, and I'm like,
yeah.
oh, I'll drink a crappy lager, but and I
So
can't even
that's
remember
like
what it
their
was.
crappy national beer.
Yeah,
That's really
apparently,
standard
apparently, I forget
go-to.
what it's called now, and I got something that's was pretty damn basic. I think like a Yinglings.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm a big Yingling fan. To my friends' disappointment because after the election they were big Trump supporters, and all my friends were like, I can't drink Yingling anymore, which is like big because
Mm-hmm.
Philly.
Yeah,
So, but I don't drink it that much, but every now and then,
yeah, yeah.
you're
See, I
at a
hadn't even
bar,
thought of that
you
connection.
know,
I probably would have picked something else that I thought of, but I was just looking for something that was clear lager and at a lower level than what I would normally get, and
yeah,
I went with it. And that's the worst. Otherwise, Stella. Dan Kelsall had me get. He got Stella because that's fancy in his neighborhood in Manchester or wherever it is he was in. So, but yeah, so I like to pick. It tastes good. There's nothing for me to survive or pretend while I'm having this conversation. So, like,
yeah.
mm,
Well,
mm.
that's part of why I chose. I'm not a fan of the 120-minute IPA. It's a bit much, so I figured, if you're not like a big barley guy,
Yeah,
then this would be good.
yeah. I think it's a nice mid-range. I noticed they had 90 where I went. I went to a Wegmans to grab some, and knowing that that would be a place I could go and not have to do a bunch of research, and they would have it. And they had a 90 there, but not the 120. So I
Mm,
didn't bother looking into it. I said I'm going to stick to it. I think this might be the first time this season that I have the exact same thing as the guest. That was a very broken theme. Became very broken early on in this, where we just could not coordinate, and like the
yeah.
guest shows up with something. Chris Walker didn't even drink. I was just drinking bourbon by myself, like a
Mhm.
winner, let's call it.
It's
So
it's all about the shared experience, and the shared
yeah,
story.
that's kind of the point. Like I will go out of my way to get something if I can, right? I mean, if
Yeah.
you pick a brewery that's like only distributes down the street and you're in Philly or you're in, someone tried to send us beer one time from the San Francisco area and it got sent back. We I try to get as close as possible to have that shared kind of element.
Mhm.
Some people don't give a shit, so I just roll with it.
Oh, I care.
That aside, we're drinking the beer. Black LinkedIn article. Let's come back to that. So that kind of did some blowing you up on the the LinkedIn side of things, the social side of things. And I can guess that also, like, you featured Madison. Obviously, anyone who's watched the show knows that she's been on here, and we're good pals at this point. And there's a few other folks that I will get mentioned in the course of this, because for me it's important to actually keep amplifying the actual names and actual voices of everyone who's involved. But tell me, how did this article come about? And then, what has been the response since, as far as personally and then, professionally and socially?
Yeah, I'm so glad to have an opportunity to talk about it because there is so much going on, and I have felt like, it's what I was trying to do was trying to encapsulate, and describe a phenomenon that was happening, and I think I did that, and just the validity of it all gave it the, really affirmed and kind of boosted people's experiences. So I'm seeing a lot, but I'm also like, I don't have another Sunday New York Times story in me. So, or like any,
Yeah.
major story. I mean, those things take a lot of work. So I'm happy to be able to talk about it. Um, it definitely, I know that people have said to me that the article changed their life, and the article
Mm-hmm.
actually changed my life too. And so that's something that just recently I've been wrapping my head around.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned Madison. I made a post at some point that Madison was the number one reason that article even came into being.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how I wish sometimes maybe I wish I could retrace the steps to know like how I even started seeing Madison in my feed. Um, what was that first connection that kind of brought her content into my world?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but when it was brought into my world, I just I just fell in love, and I kept finding myself going back to LinkedIn, and since I'm a late Gen Xer, my platform of choice was Facebook because
Mm-hmm.
I'm old now. So, and then I found myself spending way less time on Facebook and much more on LinkedIn. And I just stopped one day and I was like, what is this? Like why do I just constantly find myself coming back to LinkedIn? LinkedIn is lame, and it's but it wasn't because of, in part people like Madison.
Yeah.
And so I had just left my previous job. I worked at the Wharton School here in Philly.
Mm-hmm.
I brought a glass because sometimes I'm a little diva and I'm like, I have to drink it out of glass.
Yeah. You can. This has also been a discrepancy that's happened before.
I'm feeling good about the bottle, but yeah. So I did used to work at Wharton, and I had just left that job because of the pandemic, and so I just had a lot of idle time to even though it wasn't really idle with these children around, but I had a lot of time to think about the workplace and what my experience in the workplace has been over the course of my career. And there were a lot of things that I just felt were missing because I was working in offices that just weren't very diverse and didn't have the diversity, the representation, and the voices of people more like me. And I mean, I honestly, when I saw Madison, and I saw Madison being Madison, but also being an employee, like the fact that she was, if I think I had seen her on Twitter, the context would have been completely different. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, she's got blue hair, she says funny things, she posts good memes, but the fact that she was on LinkedIn talking about this stuff. I was just like, this is a world that actually exists, and that, kind of like Ariel from Little Mermaid, like I want to be part of that world, where like you as a black girl, biracial, queer, whatever, like all of these things that like, people think of in terms of identity politics, but it's just who you are,
Yeah.
where you could be that kind of person and also be like a VP of a startup, so I just was like, what is this? So as I just started to look at it, and I just thought, this is something really revolutionary. I've always been interested in workplace and organizational dynamics, and what I have witnessed is just that the lack of diversity in organizations is really fatal, in my opinion, to organizations. And it's hard sometimes for them to see like what could you be if you truly represented like the people who, if not already are, will represent your customer base, you know.
Mhm.
So that's kind of how it all came to be. I pitched it to the New York Times. It felt like a complete lark. When I sent the pitch, I was like, this is crazy. They're not, they're going to be like, who's this rando? And interestingly, when I sent the pitch, my editor, who's amazing, asked me for clips. And I was like, I haven't really written anything in a very long time that I would be like, proud of to hand to this New York Times editor, because I had
Mhm.
written like a lot of, like fluff, marketing fluff and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So in my pitch, I included a story that I wrote back in 2003 about a pileated woodpecker that was damaging side view mirrors in a suburban neighborhood in New Jersey. And I told this story so well, it made the front page. So I sent this to him. I was like, here's a story about a woodpecker I did. You know, and I also had a story in there that I had just done about Meghan Markle and all the ways that the royal family had shaded Meghan over the years. So I was like, here's things I've written. And as it turned out, like including that woodpecker article in my pitch, just like it's just memorable. So, and like
Yeah.
he brought it up later in our conversation. He's like, I really like that woodpecker story. I'm like, I know it was hard hitting, no pun intended.
Exactly. Yeah. Expose on the woodpecker
Yes,
got you
yeah.
in. Yeah. Nice. And has there been so since, outside of people, sharing, oh my God, like this changed my perspective. I know I've seen articles myself on LinkedIn that like changed for me, like, oh, wait, I can be a little more out with certain things on LinkedIn. So I know that impact. Outside of that kind of impact, has there been any other kind of good or bad, right? Fallout, let's call it.
No, I think so one of the I think there's been an incredible amount of networking that, again, like if I wish sometimes I could quantify it, just kind of like get all the, create the actual like network diagram of
Mm-hmm.
how, kind of like networking among Black professionals on LinkedIn before the article and then after, because I really do feel like it has just exploded. There have been several, so we've kind of not moved, but we also live on Clubhouse. I think a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the Black LinkedIn people are very active on Clubhouse.
Mm-hmm.
And Bianca Jackson hosts every Sunday a room on Clubhouse about Black LinkedIn that was specifically inspired by my
Wow.
article. Um,
Nice.
and it has, regularly has like 200 people in that room talking about, and so every Sunday you get someone who's saying, I didn't even know this was a thing. I'm just found out about this, and I am so fulfilled, and I'm just so glad that I found you. And really, that was what I was trying to do. I was just really trying to help people find each other, because honestly, especially pre-COVID, when we're all working in our offices, and it's a bubble, so
Mm-hmm.
I think that what so many factors in my article for this subset is one of them, is just bringing people together who would not have otherwise had the opportunity. And so just to see that happening on a daily basis, it's sometimes it's a little mind blowing. I have to, whenever someone says, "Oh, she started a movement," I'm like, "Did I?" Yes.
Yeah, the IPA thing is easier to own, but this is like, yeah,
Yeah. Well, you know what though? Probably in another 10 years, I will be like, "Yes, I did."
like I started Black LinkedIn.
Yeah. And it won't be prevarication. So
Exactly. Exactly. And just to drive the point home, that obviously the article, for anyone who hasn't read it, and interestingly,
I hadn't. Like when I reached out to you, like you put it on like the, hey, yeah, I guess this would be one of the things we could talk about. And I'm like, oh shit, I should go look that up. Because I hadn't even been like, like Madison came into my ecosphere the same way she did yours, right? I mean, one of the good things from a marketer's perspective about LinkedIn, organic LinkedIn, is that you see things that you otherwise wouldn't, because you can see when someone you're connected with actually like responds or reacts or engages with something, which
Yeah.
all the other platforms have shut down.
Yeah. Because
Yeah,
it was annoying there. Like you didn't really want those people
yeah,
seeing
you don't
it,
want
but
all of that stuff, and they're like, well,
yeah,
hopefully it's kind of useful here, which
I
whether it's useful or
find
not
it
is
useful. Yeah,
debatable.
I personally do, but it would be nice, LinkedIn, if we could maybe have some more control over that because
Yes, yeah,
I
yeah,
know some people are like, well, I really want to promote this that I'm doing on the side, but my all my coworkers or my connections, and so it would be nice for them to make that more customizable. But getting back to your point,
hmm
so you really just wanted to talk to me because you thought I was interesting, and
yeah.
wow,
Yeah,
you
I was
got the
looking
article.
through in the wake of the episode with Madison, like I had a shitload of new like connections, and I had, I set out for this season to be intentionally about. I mean, I got to work biz dev in somewhere now and again. I've had one episode so far where we didn't even touch it at all. That was me debating someone on the merits of interacting politely with Nazis online. So I left
Like
out
I read something that you did on that,
yeah,
or
I left out any kind of even pretend connection to biz dev. That person worked in sales too. But, the intent for this season was to take it to the edges as far as to see what we could get away with, frankly, as far as amplifying voices that needed amplification and, faces that don't look like mine. And actually, if people have new ideas relative to biz dev, right, and cool new ideas, like things that are actually new, not marketing new, where you call something new because you basically slightly modified it from something. And so I was like, all right, here's this whole new base of people. And so I just went looking through the connections, like who else could I bring on, and who's doing something and saying things that I'm like, yes, I want that to be said to more people. And so I looked at your profile, looked at a couple things, and didn't even like look that deeply enough to find like the featured like the LinkedIn. Like I think this a few weeks ago was the first time I read the article. I was like, oh, this makes sense. Now I get it. Now I get all the connection and going back and
yes,
forth. But like,
yes,
so I found that in the same way that you found, somehow on LinkedIn's feed, Madison comes across and then creates permissions, right? And then you put out this article and it creates permissions. So it creates permissions in people's brain. It's like, oh, someone just walked that path and they didn't get killed. And like, at least not in, I mean, Madison gets some whew, kind of shit coming at her, but like, not killed like leaders can get killed in reality. And so when you see that, then you can step out. That happened for me on LinkedIn in certain ways. I see it happening from that wake, and I wanted to have more of that wake, right? I wanted to like, all right, let me push that wake in whatever directions I've got some influence in,
yeah,
and have that come about. But there's something beyond LinkedIn, right? There's that professionalism thing.
mhm,
LinkedIn is representative of, and a nice little microcosm for the, kind of white, heteronormative, patriarchal, like professional world,
yeah,
where the norms are set as this weird, almost like white world on steroids, where it's like hemmed in and we only say certain things, we only dress certain ways, we only act certain ways, and then we pay some lip service to some stuff in recent decades,
hmm,
but that's running the show, right? And that's really, for me, like that's what the article drives at. LinkedIn's a great place to focus it because it is the network. I mean, fuck, it's Microsoft, for God's sakes. Like, it's the network that comes from that
right,
world and is designed for that world, which, like, that's the power, is like derailing professionalism. And I know a couple weeks ago, shit, I was watching some like documentary on like Angela Davis, right? And even then, like professionalism, like hearing a quote from good old Ronald Reagan, good old
mhm,
Ronnie, saying, he was on the board when they were voting her to be fired from UCLA. It's like, oh no, it's not the communism thing, since that's illegal and already got shut down. It's the unprofessionalism.
yeah,
That's why we're firing her. And it's just like, holy fuck, are you
yeah.
kidding?
Yeah.
So talk about that, like your experiences, what you're hearing from others' experiences. What is the deal with the professionalism, thing, and what can we do to take like pieces out of it, right? What can we do to take bites out of it in ways that are safe? Because not everyone can be the blazer, not everyone can be the trailblazer, but what's the situation and what can we all do to chip in to make it a very, very different situation?
Yeah. So I'm still kind of answering those questions myself. I think that there are a lot of layers. I wish I'd brought a notebook to kind of take bullet points, but so I'll start with that you are correct. One of the things that really started to just really outrage me, honestly, was to see what you just described on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
They're very buttoned up, just very blah, that I have no interest in and really bored by. Sometimes interest, sometimes I definitely follow all kinds of people, but just the homogeneity, it was just like, eh. But but then to see this whole like be your authentic self, bring your whole self to work. And I was like, do you know what would happen if I brought my whole self to work? I bring a slice of myself to work and they don't really like it. It doesn't, it's uncomfortable. So I can never, up until, out of here, out. I could never really like bring my whole self to work. And whether a person should or should not bring their whole self to work is another discussion. But if you're going to turn it into a mantra, a marketing mantra, a self-branding mantra, it's especially if that's part of your curated brand, then are you actually bringing your whole self to work? So that really outraged me because I felt firsthand, like kind of the sap on my creativity as a creative person with not being able to bring my whole self to work.
Mm-hmm.
And I have always known that any organization I worked for was not, reaping the rewards of like the resource of my creativity and everything because I never really felt I could bring my whole self. So that really, and that's a form of privilege, right? Of being able to just be, even if it's not fully you, a more full version of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
um, so that's number one. And I think that is kind of tied to number two, which is, how do I say this? um I've been saying a lot to friends of mine. I'm like, okay, so part of like the concept for Black LinkedIn is I was really trying to draw a professional analogy to Black Twitter. So I say we all know, maybe we don't all know, but if anyone watching doesn't know what Black Twitter is, just go look it up. But essentially, like, Twitter wouldn't really be what it is, I think, without Black Twitter. Just the way that the cultural references we make, the way that we, and for the record, I'm not even like part of Black Twitter. I just kind of retweet things, but the way that people who engage with Black Twitter and who create as part of Black Twitter just creates a tone that really has shifted our culture a lot in the last several years. Um, so I thought, what does that look like when we kind of do the same thing? We're just being ourselves on social media, but what does the impact have if Black Twitter has been so influential on American culture, both through just pop culture and fun stuff, memes and everything, to actually, inspiring movements? What could that same energy on LinkedIn do for Black people in the workplace? So that was a big concern of mine. I think that, so what I've been telling people is that corporate America is going to steal our stuff anyway. you know, Eventually corporate America will appropriate everything, like I will never forget the day that I first even learned what On Fleek was. This is obviously several years ago. But my first time I ever heard On Fleek was I hot tweeted pancakes on fleek. And I was like, what is this? Pancakes on fleek. So then
Yeah.
I went on and I looked up, I was like, okay, eyebrows on fleek. It came from, I forget her name, but she did a viral video. I think it was a Vine.
Yeah.
So our stuff will be appropriated anyway.
Yeah.
Why not just like let us, and when I say us, I mean, I'm talking about Black people, but I'm really just talking about any group who, has had to hide a part of themselves to get along in the corporate workplace. Let us create, and you'll reap the benefits anyway. And we'll be a lot happier and won't leave your company and then drag you
Yeah.
on the way out, because that's what's happening a lot more now. And I'm not going to necessarily say it's because of my article. I think it's the same energy though that drove my article, and I hope my article has something to do with empowering people to do like how Viviana, I think her name is, I forget her, Castillo.
Yeah.
Yeah, she just left Salesforce, and another woman also left Salesforce, someone in Amazon. They're leaving these companies, and now we're not afraid to say like this is not a company, or this is not a unit in a company that values Black voices. So I think that there's a big change that we're seeing, and it's so that's why like people got to get with the program, because people aren't staying silent anymore.
Yeah.
And I love it.
Yes. Yeah. No shit. More fun too. If nothing else, and wow, is there something else? But like, there's more life to it, right? There's more reality. There's more humanity. It's more engaging, and not as like the marketing shit term, like engaging, but like actually engaging for like real humans. Like, oh, okay, it's
Right.
interesting. Like, yeah, I want to look at LinkedIn, which
Mm-hmm.
is not something that anyone thought, especially a non-white marketer.
Right. Right.
Thought,
And I
or
honestly,
recruiter.
yeah, I started using LinkedIn more, just like a lot of people, which was to network. When I saw that they had their feed, I was like, people are posting some good stuff. They're also posting their broetry
Yeah.
posts, which sometimes are good, sometimes not. But I was just thinking about my next move as far as a career. And so whenever I would post, I would approach it like kind of just very carefully curated, make sure that it, was very tied to my work or whatever work I thought I wanted to do, make sure that it was not too controversial to, make my employers think that, that it was some sort of threat. And that's another big issue I have nowadays is with employers. And there's a big shift in, I think a lot of older people are used to letting their place of employment dictate kind of how you live your life outside.
Yeah.
But younger people are totally changing that. They're just saying, no, this, I have a job, but also this is me. And whether I'm just going to be me and I'm going to make money off of it or whatever, but this is me.
Yeah.
So that's I forgot what I was saying. What? You gotta go. Sorry. But
Message sent.
What's that?
Message sent.
I meditated for a very long time. I used to meditate very regularly, and I don't as much anymore, but those lessons come in handy every day because it just, otherwise I don't know what this would look like.
Yeah, this would be your fourth beer today. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So anyway, I got a little bit off track, but there are a lot of shifts, I think. And
Yeah.
oh, I was talking about how I got on LinkedIn. So I was really trying to post things that would not be offensive, but also things that were authentic and kind of edgy, because you and I both know that you have to stand out in order for people to really pay attention. So it was a fine line. And I mean, I still work on treading that line, but I just tread it in a way that is comfortable for me and on more on my terms.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, and it's hard to find that line sometimes, right? It's the co-stars.
do you have kids, Paul?
A step older and not in the like not in the pain in the ass range anymore. So
I can't wait. The years. I never thought I would want to get old. But now I'm counting years. I'm like, when they're 18, when they're all 18, I'm gonna be so old, but
yeah, but yet so free feeling.
so free.
Yeah. If I have anything left, it's going to be the best thing that I have left.
My 60s are gonna be epic.
Exactly. So let's shift a little bit. So we're talking kind of about like the LinkedIn experience and then the employee experience, right? So we're talking about what it's like to be employed, like the lines you have to walk to either cater to what your employer thinks you should act like. Sometimes, like you said, even when it's outside the workplace, but certainly when it's inside. And of course, we're not talking about like breaking rules that are, protecting people. We're just talking about being ourselves and in ways that does not conflict with any kind of objective we're there to accomplish as an employee. And then there's employers, right? There's the larger level. There's the people who run and found and start these companies. There's and startups and the people who fund those people and how they fund them. So by the time this episode comes out, will have just comes out tomorrow or 2 days from right now. There's an episode with Rand Fishkin, who's got a pretty big audience, has done a couple startups, and he did a post on inequality and funding. And so I reached out to him and said, like, hey, want to come on this little podcast and drink and talk about that specifically? And he did. And he's like, yeah, like let's go, right? He's like, because and there are alternatives. And so I've interacted a little bit with like Backstage Capital, like groups. They're like, all right, staying in the current model, like within the funding heavy capitalist model, like how can we shift that? Like how can we actually put money, change where it's going to, so that changes who's actually heading these companies and what these teams look like, which will change some of these policies. And so we had a big convo about that. And as well as, I mean, it got bigger than that into the whole where the money comes from and people not paying taxes on certain kinds of money, which is why the VC space is what it is, which is what helps make the tech space look the way it does, right? Which is white bros as far as the eye can see. To be fair, some are better than mediocre at what they do, but still it's very like, here's this culture. And you mentioned Vivian, right? I mean, like, and Salesforce counts because that's giant. And they're a tech company. And I don't get to just attack them because we're a HubSpot agency partner, but it helps. But it's like, they have a track record, right? And there wasn't even in her letter, she referenced someone else's letter when that person had left. I mean, it just goes back and back and back. So as far as the, like, is there anything that you can see as far as that higher level, the funding itself, the where it comes from, the who it goes to, and then the who gets put in charge, being that that's going to dictate the next wave, right? The next wave of all the companies now that will still exist and run everything in 20 years. So I'm not going to count Uber in this because I don't know that they'll have they've got a dicey culture. They've had one for sure, but they still haven't figured out a business model. So like thinking in tech firms that at least do something, create something of value, like at the level of management, what can people be doing as they come in at the level of financing their companies, at the level, and then we'll segue in because we do want to talk about generational wealth and First Boulevard and some things. But what are you seeing at the employer level that doesn't work, and maybe any ideas for steps we can take in a better direction?
Yeah. So apologies if you hear any shrieking in the background.
I haven't heard it yet, but now I'm really.
Yeah, I don't care unless there's blood involved, and even then. So actually, it's a really good segue because one of the things, First Boulevard just had a really good press a run of publicity because we announced our seed funding
Mhm.
round. So a lot of really great articles, and one of the things that I think that I personally am most proud of, or just most happy about from the perspective of an employee, is that we have our two co-founders. One is a man, one is a woman.
Mhm.
One is black, one is Asian American or Canadian. I think I'll
Mhm.
learn more about her background because she's fascinating. But and I think like 80 some percent of our team so far, which is still growing, is people of color.
Mhm.
Uh, I think 60% of us are black, and and I think what we're showing is that we're gonna kill it, and we can kill it. And to me, like, that's the best way, in my opinion, to just feel like we often feel like we have something to prove. So in my current position, I feel like, we're proving it, but on our own terms,
Yeah.
and I don't, every single person who works for that company is just so gratified to be there, um,
Mhm.
and to have the opportunity to work for an organization that is predominantly the global majority, you know. Um, like, this shouldn't be the composition of our company can be standard, like
Yeah.
it can be. We have white employees, Um, many of us have white spouses. I have one. So disclaimer, if I say
Mhm.
anything that offends white people, I'm married to a white man.
Yeah.
Kidding. Well, I'm not kidding. I am married to a white man. But
Interview's over.
I don't qualify. It's like I ticked myself out of the box, right? No. Yeah, he's a white guy, and and he's pretty cool. But
Mhm.
yeah, the point is though that when you get a group of people who are from all over and you get them together for something that's meaningful and they believe in, you'll get the best.
Yeah.
And I think our success, the company was just founded in September,
Mhm.
and I just feel everything is looking very promising, and we're all so dedicated. And there's just also a sense of relief of, like, we don't have to perform in the same ways that we had to in prior lives. And so I feel like that'll be a good way to show that, yes,
Yeah.
it's possible for black and brown people to, like, work together
Yeah.
and, like, be successful and
Be
do
productive.
amazing
Wow.
things. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and we're all amazing, but, like, we don't have to be the most qualified. There's always like, oh, we're totally fine with diversity, we just, we only want the best candidates. You know what? I have worked in a lot of places, and I've seen a lot of candidates who eventually were employees, and they were not the best.
Yeah.
So, you
Yeah.
know,
But good story. Cool story. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So
Mhm.
I think that's one thing. But I mean, I have a lot of, by dint of the article in the New York Times, I made a lot of connections in the DEI space, and I don't have the answers to how corporate America, how to save corporate America from itself.
Yeah.
It is very much like America, the country. We saw on January 6th what happens when, you don't it wasn't a very diverse crowd at the Capitol that day.
No.
Um so, if that's what you want, then don't change. But I don't have
Mhm.
the answers. And I'm just really relieved that I'm in a position right now, as far as my 9 to 5 work life, that I
Yeah.
don't have to have the answers. Because, but it'll be interesting. My DEI friends, I don't envy the work they do, because it's hard to fight back against those systems, especially when you're just one person.
Yeah. Even when they bring you in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of times
Mhm.
when they bring you in is, so it's like any good employee, you're supposed to meet your performance expectations. And if
Mhm.
your
Mhm.
performance expectations don't say, you know, completely shift the culture and the paradigm of this company that has been operating for, 50 or 100 years, um, or 20 years, 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's not in your, performance metrics, then that it's really challenging for the DEI folks in corporate America,
Yeah.
and my heart goes out to them. I wouldn't
Yeah.
want to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Good luck. Right. You go do that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And that's, yeah, no, it's tough, but I do like like you mentioned with First Boulevard, and I'll take it to a different front. There's the front of walking the walk, right? Walking the talk and then demonstrating something. So just like people posting on LinkedIn in a way that you've never seen before, like kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, well, I'll try that. I'll try that too and see how it goes. Then companies actually doing it that way and saying, hey, we're going to go ahead and have an actually diverse, and not like we're checking the checklist, right? Not like we've got we've reached 24%, so we did it, friend. Like we're gonna do this the actually diverse way and demonstrate that. And what the company does, right? The product that it's looking to create is also a higher level, like looking to address some of the systemic issues. So I know, like I was surprised. So even when I talked to Rand about the funding thing, I made a joke question that he then answered with a bunch of solutions. I made a question like, so how can we fix it? Ha ha ha. And I was about to say something else. And then he goes on with the like, well, actually, as far as the funding version, here's these organizations that are doing something already. And here's this, and here's the version of the thing we did for SparkToro. And we did our documents open source style. So you can do it this way too. And it's just like, oh, like that's what I like. Not just the individual. Like, of course, the individual can do something, but often at great pain and sacrifice, right? So instead of recommending that people eviscerate themselves for the greater good, which is not, like
I'm over that.
Yeah, it's been like decades and hundreds of years. Like, can we just like actually? But then groups demonstrating something and then looking to solve something, even with what they do, like the generational wealth situation, right? Because I think for most Americans generally, didn't know about things like, well, what is the generational wealth situation at all? And of course, the nasty shit that's happened along the way to ensure that there's no generational wealth situation, right? Like people, until they watched Watchmen or something on HBO or whatever the hell was on, didn't know that Black Wall Street getting bombed out of existence. Like, oh, it's like, oh, that's cool. And then they Googled it and it's like, oh, this is not a part of the comic book narrative. Like this is, like you don't know that the times and the times and times that have stopped, and then now you do. Like maybe if you look into it, you can find the memes on the internet, and it's like, well, here's what privilege means, and here's what generational wealth adds, and here's what, and our system's designed to protect these things, and it's not a fucking accident, right? It's not like oh, we didn't even think about this, we should change the laws. Like no, you definitely did think about it. That's why they are, and here's a product that's actually out to address some of that. So can you like say anything to the value of kind of like the mission of what First Boulevard happens to be about, and what that issue is for some folks maybe who didn't even see Watchmen yet and so don't know what the fuck I'm talking about?
Yeah. So yeah, I just want to reiterate that I'm a brand newbie to the startup world.
Mm-hmm.
So, but one thing that I remember watching in a video, that the new dean of the Wharton School, Erica James, she's a Black woman, she was interviewing with Josh Koppelman. He's an investor. He has a VC firm in Philly and other places. And so he was participating in this conversation about, about race. And then it was a great conversation, but he said something about, and I think this is a term in the startup world, like pattern matching, it's like, he's like, there's a real issue with pattern matching. And I'm like, oh, that just sounds like a way to say, we don't know any Black people. And so we don't invite them to, we don't even know who to invest in. We're not connected to, or when you're bringing people on, like you don't. So it just sounds like the pattern matching sounds like I only have white friends. However, as far as generational wealth, I have a funny story. So every summer, I get really angry because someone will talk about, oh, we're just spending a couple of weeks at my grandma's beach house. Um, I love the beach. I want nothing more than a beach house. And I went to school in New Jersey, so we're talking about the Jersey Shore, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, my ancestors could never have purchased a beach house. Like they were not allowed to, So whenever I hear that, I'm like, I want you to enjoy your beach house and live your best life. But just know, I am so resentful right now that,
Yeah.
I'm just like waiting for the perfect, like all inclusive vacation package to come around where, I would love to just go to my beach house. But out of here, you guys. So funny story. We're renovating a house here in Philly, and so we were tearing down the walls, and my husband found a token. It was a silver token, and it was very, you couldn't really see the writing on it, but it essentially said, "Redeem this token at like 1234 Market Street in Philly for a parcel of uh on the Delaware River." Like they were giving out parcels, and so I don't know if this is actually legit. I haven't done too much more research into it, but at the very bottom of the coin, in very small letters, and it was almost rubbed out, but it said "white race only."
Mm.
So when I found that coin, that token, I sat there and I said, wow, let's assume this was real. They were literally just giving away parcels of riverfront land to people. You, but only for white people.
Yeah, not all people. Yeah.
Right. So like I don't think people understand that. They
Yeah.
don't understand that it was essentially a massive theft and massive giveaway. So the generational wealth, we've been raised to really think that you earn, you're successful because you've earned it. Do you understand? You're going to be on a show, a show essentially, okay, around the world
Mm-hmm.
in your pajamas.
That's why it's there.
But so yeah, generational wealth is something that is really hard to escape. Even when you go to college and you become a professional person, it's just so hard. And it's a combination of, just having, if you have very little wealth, and the average white family in America has $115,000 of wealth, and you've got very little, it's projected to be zero by maybe 2053. But don't quote me on that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's very hard, I think, for people to grasp that people like me, my grandparents, my great grandparents, people like them, had things taken away from them. So we really have to fix that. And there's also the fact that because we did not have that money, there was no way for us to know the basics of finances. So I think that what First Boulevard is doing is really putting together tools for people to understand better how to spend their money and to recirculate the dollar within the Black community, supporting Black businesses, which is easier than ever. I really think it's for anyone, Black, white, whatever you are, go out and look at some of the Black businesses that have been developed online. There's some amazing products, high quality, and so there's never been a better time. And I think this is a very good moment to say, okay, this is how we're going to recirculate our dollars in a 21st century way, right?
Yep.
But because of a lot of policy and economic racism, there are not always a lot of Black businesses in Black neighborhoods to go to patronize. You've got your barbershops, braiding salons, but there's not a lot of Black businesses brick and mortar to shop at. You can't just stroll to Main Street and support Black businesses. So I think now that everything is digital, and people are there's a lot of creativity that has been born out of the Black Lives Matter movement. And so I think it's going to be easier than ever to buy black and bank black. And I encourage anyone, regardless of their race, to do so.
Yeah. Yeah. And an important disclaimer that for the groups doing things like this, whether they're setting up products like this or they're creating content about literacy and the, you can still join in even if you're white folks, right? I mean, you can
Absolutely.
like allies welcome, and in fact, there's the allyship that fucking matters. The all square,
Right.
the black square on Instagram. I mean, shit, that wasn't even. Everyone used that as an example. That wasn't even helpful. That was counterproductive, let
Yeah.
alone not being helpful. But like, it goes more than the social posts and the button. Like, you can actually put your money where your mouth is and really support this movement.
Right. Yeah. And you can use our app, but then don't get upset. Don't come in and say, well, I don't like that you're saying it's unapologetic. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's not for you.
Yeah.
Just like we patronized a lot of businesses and worked for a lot of places that weren't for us, but we have no choice. Now if you want to be a true ally, you don't have to. It's a luxury and a privilege, but we're not gonna, it's not about your comfort. And I think that's a lot of what you hear. It cannot be said enough. I know that Madison talks a lot about it, and a lot of people do, is that I think a lot of what the last year has taught us is that no amount of making people comfortable is going to win you is going to get you anywhere. It's going to get you the gains that you're looking for.
Yeah.
You want the people who are willing to sit with their discomfort and really make a difference and enrich themselves. That's who you want on your side. So yeah,
No doubt. Cool. So we've reached just about the end here, and
did you
so
want to talk about business development though?
oh yeah, well, you're in marketing, I'm in marketing. Bam, we did it.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the LinkedIn side, right? Like, put out something that actually has some value, has some punch, right? And then is still useful. It's, value isn't always just in 101 tips for other people to drive insane, stupid engagement because you said some sentence that every fucking person who's ever done anything in marketing knows, and then put thoughts after it. Thoughts? Like, oh, know what your customer wants. Thoughts? And then, or to take a picture of the tweet that says that you made, and then make that your LinkedIn post, and then watch the hundreds of assholes like line up who are like lower on the totem, there's engagement that way, and then there's like engagement with saying something that you might not get silly numbers on. Right? Like, you might not get unless you're Madison. I haven't figured out I don't know how to crack the code like she did. I mean, that's some crazy shit numbers, the numbers that she was getting on those posts.
I know. But, it really, she blows people like Richard Branson. She blows Richard Branson out of the water regularly. I just want to say for the record.
Yeah, it's nuts. And so there is value, right? So there is some marketing value in saying something that even prior to you saying it was unsayable.
Yeah.
And you can put yourself out authentically. You open with this, right? So like, the authentic thing, setting aside whether or not that's true or a good thing, or like that's what people should be doing at work. I think that, but I always have thought that, and I'm different than a lot of folks. And so of course someone like me is going to think that when you are different, you want to rail for like, shit, I just want to be me in the environment and have it be okay. And you can do that now and still provide other kinds of value and not have to quash yourself. And I think we implied that all through the conversation, without, but I think that's a giant takeaway, is like, permission granted. Like, fucking go out and say what matters. And help yourself, help people around you, help people that need to get fucking helped, and drive a business doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why, I am just so grateful that I can bring all of the history and those thoughts and perspectives with me to the job where I'm at now at First Boulevard, and use it to actually do good work every day and have that appreciated and recognized, is amazing. So it's been a really great experience, and also just learning from people like Madison and many, many others, that, you can be you, and not, you know, you can be your whole self, or at least use your own judgment and intuition to decide what you're going to put forth, not just
Yeah.
put forth what the next person, you know, does.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah.
But
So the closing here is you telling viewers, listeners, where to find you and where to find what you're about, and then you determine the close. So you get to leave on whatever message, takeaway. It could be promo, it could be whatever it is, or whatever you want to say. You get the last word.
well, I have no promo because, as you know, I'm an anti-influencer, so I don't package myself or anything like that. And that sounds like a, a more of a statement than it is. Really, I'm just, just kind of lazy. I have my hands full. So
We see.
yeah, there's no fighting it. But this is my authentic self right now.
Mm-hmm.
As far as where to find me on LinkedIn. I have a website that's in the works. I'm overthinking it. My friend said literally just put a white page and like your links to stuff, and I was like, but no, it has to be salesy.
How will I convert?
Yes. No, I don't know. So I'm kind of stuck, but I'm looking at the blank page and I'm like, you're just gonna put your name up there. That's all you gotta do.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but LinkedIn is the place to find me. I spend a lot of time there. I'm kind of addicted to Clubhouse now. So at Ashanti Martin, you can follow me and catch me in all kinds of different rooms.
Yeah.
And
your whole screen just went green.
Oh no. Oh, I can see my I hope it's not my son. Sometimes he plays with screen stuff because he's in school and he likes to teachers and stuff.
That's
but
a trippy effect.
Yeah, that's cool. I like it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
we do the whole episode. Let's do this. This is great.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I just appreciate having the time to come talk to you. I'm glad that I was able to talk about my work at First Boulevard, but also to talk about some of my own thoughts, and just want to make it very clear that I am not a spokesperson for First Boulevard. I'm extremely proud to work there, but I'm trying to figure out how to bring my whole self, but still do the bifurcation. But I think that we're all getting it a lot better than we would have 5-10 years ago. So yeah. Could you not get out? Just go. That's Clint Martin. He'll be a movie star one day, but not today.
He's gotten some good practice in today. Well, thanks so much for being here and sharing your thoughts. I mean, sharing about the companies and stuff is great, and especially when the companies are doing great things. But your thoughts is what we're interested in here, and I think we said some good things that I hope will open up those permissions for just more people like to be themselves, make a difference. The real one, not just the social media one. And let's move this shit forward, right?
Yeah, man. It's just like we gotta just all we've been separated for a very long time from each other, right? So now we kind of know more about the things that have been missing just during the pandemic. I mean, my life would have been very much confined to Philadelphia. I was looking for jobs only in Philadelphia, but now the whole world has opened up, and I just would encourage everyone to embrace that, because it's not something that I think would have happened if we didn't have to live through a pandemic. So just make the best of it. This last year sucked, and so let's just figure out a better way to do things, because a lot of shit is broken. So.
And some of it's accidental, some of it's pretty intentional, but fuck the intentional stuff either, because eventually those folks got to die.
Yeah.
We got to move this thing forward, and addressing the systemic stuff we can, right? Otherwise, them dying doesn't matter, to speak to generational wealth, right? People dying off doesn't matter, because it's just the next bunch of those folks that have everything and have control of everything. So we can't just wait for the big die off. We've got to actually like take action, individual action, group action, organized action, and then support things that actually support a new future coming. And appreciate the conversation.
It's all about supporting each other. Honestly, at the end of the day, just supporting each other and supporting those who are among the most vulnerable. You know, when you do things like walk out of a major company and put it all on the line for people like that, like I just want to support them so that there's more of them who are out there speaking the truth. Yeah,
exactly. Well, here's to that. Thanks Ashanti for coming on, and we'll talk soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Paul.
Brews BizDev is hosted by Paul Greiner and produced by Renown Creative. Check us out at renownCreative.com. Are you fucking kidding me?